Okay, so good morning. My name is George Hardwick. I'm a volunteer here at the Leamington Peace Festival. I'd like to welcome everyone here with us live and everyone here via the internet to our inaugural World Peace Forum. The Leamington Peace Festival has been running for many years now, dedicated to trying to promote the cause of peace around the world and especially in local communities. So it's my great pleasure that we have 5 very beautiful souls with us here today who are going to expand on a number of concepts around peace and the place of religion in a peaceful world. So I'd like to just start by inviting you guys to introduce yourselves, your religions, and who you are in the world as people as well.
Hello, my name is Zaf Bachi. I'm representing the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association, which is a community in Islam which was founded just over 100 years ago.
Good morning, my name is Jason Garrett. I'm a member of St Paul's Church here in Leamington, which is an Anglican church, and also my day job is I work for International Development Charity, which among other things does a lot of work around building peace and resolving conflict.
Hi everybody, my name is Henry Cohen. I'm Jewish, a member of Birmingham Progressive Synagogue, and I used to teach history for many years at the University of Warwick, which is just up the road from here.
Hello, my name is Prana Govinda Das. I'm representing the International Pure Bhakti Yoga Society, which is a worldwide spiritual organization.
Hello, good morning. Sat Sri Akal, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Jatinder Singh Birdi. I'm a Sikh and I also chair the Warwick District Faiths Forum. And it's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you guys. So I would just like to say that if you can hear some melodies in the background, there's a choir of young children and students who are singing at the moment. So just think of it as some pleasant background noise. We're live, and so this is a whole festival going on. So we thank you and we hope you enjoy the sounds as well as these guys' fantastic voices. I'd like to begin by just saying that each of these good folk who's volunteered to come here and to spare some time does not represent the entirety of their faith. They're simply individuals practicing their faith, and they speak as themselves rather than as the entire religion that they represent. So, guys, I'd like to begin with a quick question about peace. And I'd like, if you would be willing to share a few words about what you feel your religions, to you, say about peace in the world.
Thank you very much for this very important question and very wide question. The religion of Islam, it actually means peace. So that is the start point and the end point of Islam. And in terms of peace in the world, there's various aspects of peace that would contribute to the world peace. So first of all, there's the interreligious peace, then the economic peace, and the individual peace, and the social peace. And Islam provides guidance on all these aspects. So it's very difficult to cover everything, but if I'm allowed to just pick up a few points. So first of all, if you look at interreligious peace, so in the world today, unfortunately, there are some people who represent who claim to represent Islam, and they have the wrong concept of the notion of jihad. And so we saw a couple of weeks ago in Woolwich a very despicable act which the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association completely condemns. And this concept of jihad that has come into some parts of Islam, or some people who say they are following Islam, this is completely against the real teachings of Islam. But second of all, there is also the aspect where the wrong interpretation of Islam is spread by various sections of the media, and so this also adds to that problem. Then there is the peace in the world, and the one thing I would say about peace in the world, to have peace in the world, it is necessary to have absolute justice in all world affairs. And the Holy Quran is very clear about this. It says that you must do justice even if it's to your enemy. So you can't let the enmity with someone take you away from justice. So absolute justice is the most important thing which is lacking in the world today and which is required for world peace. So that very briefly is our view on that.
Well, as a Christian, I would aim to follow the example of Jesus, and he was called the Prince of Peace, and in his famous Sermon on the Mount, one of the aspects of that was he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." So as Christians, we have very clear direction and instruction to pursue peace. But as my colleague Zaf has said, I think peace is very tied into justice as well. That peace isn't the absence of conflict, the absence of war only. It is about justice as well. So you can perhaps have a situation of huge inequality and injustice in a situation where maybe there's no conflict, but it's because certain people are kind of kept in a subservient position, and that's not really peace. So the two are very closely connected in Islam and certainly in Christianity as well. The Bible says huge amounts about justice, about how we treat other people, treat the poor, the oppressed, the widow, the orphan, and also how we treat our enemies as well. So all of those aspects are very, very important when we're talking about peace.
I will quote you from a short Jewish saying which has come down the centuries. The world rests on three pillars: justice, truth, and peace. That is, both between nations and between individuals. What this means is that you cannot have peace without either justice, as we've just heard, or truth, but also that the same high standards of ethical conduct should apply between nations as we would apply in our ordinary lives with our fellow men and women, whether of our own faith or other faiths or other races or beliefs. And let me give you a quotation from a much more recent rabbi writing 20 years ago about how this works out in practice when we're talking about peace among the nations. John Rayner wrote, "It is not enough to pray for peace, we have to work for it. It is a challenge to those who foster conflict. We must refute their propaganda to ascertain and make known the truth, both when it confirms and when it runs counter to conventional views. To denounce injustice, not only when it is committed against us, but also when it is committed against others. To defend human rights, not only our own, but also theirs. To insist that peace requires sacrifice, our pride, or wealth, or territory. To practice and promote the way of moderation, compromise, and reconciliation. And to build bridges of respect and understanding, trust and friendship across the chasms that now divide humanity."
Hare Krishna. If I may say that I'm representing the International Pure Bhakti Yoga Society, to say that this society is non-sectarian. People who are practicing pure bhakti, or bhakti yoga as it's known, may come from any background. They may be originally from the Muslim background, a Hindu background, Christian background, or a Jewish background, or even a non-religious background. Bhakti yoga means love and devotion. And love and devotion to who? To the Supreme, to God. God goes by many names. I'm sure everybody on this panel will call God a certain name. Some may call him Krishna, some God, the Lord, Christ, Jehovah, Jah, Allah. It doesn't matter, because actually there's only one God, and he has many names. So we're understanding that we are all children of that one God, no matter what is his name. We're all brothers and sisters. So we understand that if we're all brothers and sisters, and we're all children of the one God, then what is the point of quarreling with each other? We can also understand that God, Krishna or Allah or whatever you would like to call him, has allotted us certain facilities in this life. In Sanskrit it's called karma. Because of our previous actions, we have a certain amount of money, we have a certain family, we're born in a certain country, we have so much facility. So why are we encroaching on other people's facilities? Why is the need to go to other countries and take their oil or hurt their people? So in Bhakti Yoga we understand that we should just be satisfied with what we've been allotted in this life. And understand that everybody else has also been allotted their things, and that we have no right to steal or take anything that belongs to others. So, in my understanding, this is a very simple peace formula.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. To attain peace, I think there are many different levels, and the first level is that we must attain peace within ourselves. And to attain that, that's where our scriptures, all our holy scriptures, help us and guide us in attaining peace amongst ourselves. Only after that can we then attain to achieve peace in our local communities. Then we also need to get peace on a national level, and then also on an international level. But the starting point has got to be we must be at peace with ourselves. Only then can we move forward. The Sikh Holy Scripture says, and I would agree with everything all the panels have said so far, says, Ik Pita Ekas Ke Hum Barak. There is one God, known by many names, and we are all his children. Do you think our Father would be happy if we are quarrelling and fighting with our fellow brothers and sisters? I don't think so. We should learn to live with each other. We should learn to understand each other and work together for the betterment of the whole of society. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your articulate answers. So that first question and the one that will be following was really designed to try and draw out what are the common grounds, what unites us, and already we've seen the ideas of justice and of all being children of a one God. So I wonder what you guys would think about the idea of love, both in human terms, human to human, and also, I guess, that divine love. What would your religion say about love as a uniting force?
Thank you. It's such a wide and beautiful question that it's quite difficult to which aspect of that to choose. But the Arabic word for love is muhabbat, and that is derived and means actually to fill yourself with something. And the Holy Quran and Islam, it teaches man to love God and to fill yourself with God. And when you love God and you fill yourself with his love, you take on the color of his attributes. So if you love something and you fill yourself with that thing, then you take on his color. And the colors of God given in the Holy Quran, right in the beginning, the four primary are Rahman, Rahim, Rabbul Alameen and Maliki Yawmuddin. And all these four characterize God's aspects of mercy. And in particular, it begins with the mercy of God, which is universal. So Rahman, it means a mercy which is universal. It doesn't distinguish between whether you believe in God, whether you don't believe in God. And so if you begin to love God, then you must necessarily love his creation. And there's a very beautiful saying of the founder of Islam who said, my creation, God says that my creation is like my family. And those who treat I love those, God loves those who treat his family the best, i.e. God's creation. So that is just a small aspect of love in Islam.
Thank you. Well, Jesus was once asked to summarise what are the main principles of what he was coming to earth to promote, and he said that he could sum them up in two ways. One was to love the Lord our God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and your strength, and the other was to love your neighbour as yourself. So he saw love as being, a great principle, and as you were saying, George, the love between ourselves and God, and the love between ourselves and those around us. But of course, that's in a way just a word. What do we really mean by that? And he was challenged by somebody who said, "Well, who is my neighbour?" And so he told the famous story of the Good Samaritan, of a man who was walking along a deserted road and got attacked by robbers, and left seriously injured, left to die perhaps. And other people came along that road, people from his own community, who saw what had happened and decided to walk on by perhaps because they were scared of what might happen to them. They didn't perhaps want to get involved in some nasty issue. And then a Samaritan man came. And the important point about that was that the people of Israel and the Samaritans were enemies. They hated each other. They wouldn't have anything to do with each other. And yet, in this story that Jesus told, the Samaritan man stopped, looked after the man who was injured, bound his wounds, and took him to a local inn and paid for him to be looked after until he'd recovered. And so Jesus was saying, your neighbours aren't just those that live right around you. They're not just those who are in your own community. They're not just those from your own faith and your own ethnic group or whatever. Your neighbour is anybody around you who needs your help. And particularly, it's the person from a community that you have been taught to hate. So he articulated what that means, I think, very, very well. And maybe we don't always fully understand the implications of that when we hear the story of the Good Samaritan, but it is about showing love in practical ways to those that traditionally are our enemies. And I think that is a very, very important principle when it comes to love.
Judaism teaches that in order to earn God's love for us, we need, among other things, to love our fellow men and show that in practical ways. We get the love of God by earning it as much as, if not more, than by just having faith in God. The opposite of love is hatred. There's far too much hatred in the world. And so we need to teach one another that we should not only love people, but avoid any kind of hatred, demonizing other people, loving people of other groups as much as we do those of our own. And that begins in childhood. It begins in school. And one of the things which our liturgy says you should say to a child, you are a marvel, you are unique, you are unlike any other being on the planet. So please do respect every other child, every other person who is equally unique, who is equally favored by God, and avoid doing any harm to them.
We understand that God is in the heart of every living entity. He's not just in the heart of every man, woman and child, but actually he's in the heart of every animal, every living being. Every soul is a spark from God. It's likened to, there's a fire. Let's say the fire represents God, Krishna. And each spark from that fire is like the spirit souls. That's us, the living entity. So we can see that there is a living entity within every being, because we can see that a dog, a cat, a woman, even a blade of grass comes into being, grows, at some time dwindles and passes away. So that means there is life there. Where there is life, God is present. But God is even present in something that's inert. Even in this microphone, he's present because he's within every atom. This material energy that even this microphone is made of, this is God's energy. So God is everywhere. Like many scriptures say, in the Bible it says He is omnipresent, He's omniscient, He's everywhere and He knows everything. So if we develop love for God, then automatically we develop love for every living entity. It's not that we have to make any extra endeavor to love a certain person, or a certain group of people, or a certain country, or a certain being. Automatically that love will exist if we love God. So
thank you again. I would agree with all that my brothers have said before me. Love is something that happens naturally. A love for God, love for our parents, we can't measure it, it is just there. It is part of our growing up, it's part of our birth. And same is for God. God has provided for us. It says in the Sikh Holy Scripture, Pavan Guru Pani Pita Mata Dartamhat. The air is the Guru, the water is our father, and the earth is our mother. All three things are needed by us to live, which God has provided for us. And it further goes and says that the day and night are also two nurses in which lap the whole world plays. So God has, through His love, provided for us and given us everything that we need. So it is important for us not just to appreciate love for God, but also for all His creations. And that is the whole planet, the planet as well, because the planet provides us with food for our well-being. But to attain love, it's nice to say that, but how do we attain that? To have love, it's very important for us to be actually content with what we've got. Yes, we would like to have very fast cars and very big houses, but we should try our best, live our life honestly, work hard, and we will sow the rewards for that. And if things don't happen that we want, then we should be content and move forward. Maybe they will happen at a later time. But to attain peace, it's very important for us to be actually content with what we've got, be prepared to work hard, have faith, and things will happen naturally.
Thank you guys for all of your answers. That's the kind of the shared language that you guys have been using, I think really articulates there is that unity, that uniting force. But in the next question, and after this question I'd like to open up to the audience for some questions from the floor. But this final question that I'd like to ask you guys, we've looked at the common ground, and we've seen that there is a thread of peace that runs through all religions present here today. We've seen there is a thread of deep love that runs through all religions present here today. But we also have said that each of us is different. Each of us is unique. And so, with that being the case, I wonder what you guys think about the idea that the differences in each of our religions can actually be blessings for the world, rather than, as is so often articulated, curses that divide us. What place does the differences that exist have to give us, real benefit in the world?
So this question, from an Islamic point of view, and from the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran teaches us that all religions, they came from God. So as God is one, and also the Holy Quran teaches us, and Islam teaches us, that God sent a messenger to every nation, every people all over the earth. Whether we read of their name, that messenger's name in the Holy Quran or in other scriptures, or we don't, or history has lost their name, but God sent a messenger to every people in the world, and that message came from God. So as God is one, there can't be any contradiction in those messages. And the Holy Quran also actually says to have religious peace, that everyone, they should come and focus on the common ground and the common issues between the religions, as we've just seen already. But as what we believe is, so why are then these differences? So if all faiths, they came from God, then why is it that these differences have come? And it's not between religions, it's actually within religion itself. There are so many differences. So why has this happened? And the Holy Quran, it teaches us that as human beings being human beings, when the religion comes from God, it's in its pristine and pure form. Every messenger, Moses, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, all these messengers are there from God. Their teachings are pure. Their example is pure. But human beings being human beings, they distort that messages and they introduce those differences. But as George has quite rightly said, is there something that can be gained from those differences? And it's quite interesting because the holy founder of Islam, what he said was that amongst his followers, amongst his ummah, the true followers who follow him correctly, there would arise differences, but those differences, they would lead to enhancement of knowledge and enhancement of understanding. But that can only happen if your attitude is peaceful and that those differences are not in principle. As we can see in Islam, unfortunately, those differences, in the end, they divided. But what the Holy Founder of Islam said was those differences actually should have enhanced the understanding of the people. Thanks.
I think this is perhaps the trickiest issue that we have to talk about. Is things like peace and love are, things that we can all speak on positively and kind of agree on, but focusing on differences is more difficult. I think perhaps as faiths we have a tendency to see our faith as being the one that is true and correct, and there can be a tendency to then go to say, well, I have all the answers now, I have become a Christian or whatever faith might be, I have all the answers, it's all there, and almost become static, which I think is a big mistake. I think we have to recognise that our faith gives us an awful lot, but it doesn't give us every single answer to every single issue that we're ever going to come across, or not easily. We have to grapple with it. The world is complex, our lives are complex, the issues we deal with are complex. And scriptures, many hundreds or thousands of years old, can teach us huge amounts, and there are principles that go through those that still apply, but we've got to work out how we apply them. And we've also got to work out how we apply them in our lives, in our particular context. And that might be slightly different to somebody else in a different place. And unfortunately, I think many times people are rather too kind of arrogant about their particular faith, and think that they don't have to learn anymore, that they aren't on a journey. And I think we all are. And while you may not agree with every principle of another faith, or even another part of your own faith, I think we've still got to be open to learning from those as we progress on our own journey, and also what we often make the mistake of doing, I think, particularly as Christians in the UK, we don't understand the difference between our faith and our culture, because our culture in the UK has got Christianity, running through it in lots of ways. But it's maybe diluted, or it's been changed a little bit, or it's one particular version of Christianity. And we think that the way that we do things in our churches here is Christianity, but it's not. It's just the British cultural way of doing Christianity, and sometimes actually it can get in the way of our faith. And so being open to people maybe of the same faith but in a different culture. I've been to many parts of the world and have been in churches. Some of them look like the churches here, some of them are small round huts, but they're all churches, and in many ways I learn more from the church that looks very different to my own. And then I've also met with people of other faiths, and I may not agree with everything about what they believe, but there's lots of things that I can learn, perhaps about the way they put that faith into practice, and the devotion that they have to it, that perhaps in lots of ways is missing from my faith. So the divisions that we have is about the diversity of humankind, and the diversity of culture and place. And I think that's what, we want to preserve that great diversity, so that we can learn from others in different places and not try and impose our own version on things. in many ways in the past, the mistake that the Christian faith has made has been to impose our culture on people as well as teaching them about our faith, rather than teaching people or allowing people to learn about our faith, but then to interpret it in their own particular cultural manner. And that's what we need to be able to do, and that helps to promote diversity while existing with those principles of peace and justice and truth and love as well.
Judaism teaches that salvation is open to all mankind, of all faiths or none. They don't have to be born Jewish or convert to Judaism, practice Judaism, providing that they observe certain essential basic rules of moral uprightness, such as not committing murder or idolatry and a few others, and one positive injunction in order to secure salvation, and that is to have properly established courts of justice, because from the pursuit of justice, everything else that we regard as morally desirable follows. Secondly, I would say that the Jewish community is heavily involved in this country and elsewhere in interfaith relations. And this is for two reasons, which I think duplicate what's already been said. First of all, because we can learn from other faiths different ways of expressing the moral and ethical values which, to a large degree, we all share. And secondly, because the more we learn about other faiths and other cultures, the more we will avoid conflict, the more we might hope to help to bring about peace.
Thank you. So we can understand that many religions and many paths, there is a diversity in a practice. But we can understand also this is actually external. One church or one path, they may use some external rituals, practices, songs, chants. But what is the common thread amongst all those paths and religions? It's love. It's love for God. So we understand that the Lord has given us free will. We can love Him or we can not. And He has given us many paths, many religions, and many spiritual programs for us to develop love for God. Because each individual soul has a particular mood of love for God, and that is our own personal mood. So according to that mood, that love that we have for God, therefore we may be drawn to a particular religion or faith or path. So, like our friend was saying, that God created all these religions because He also gave us free will. We can choose to love God in a particular mood, and so therefore we are drawn to all these diverse paths. So I think having so many paths and religions in this world is a very beautiful thing, as long as we remember something very key in that: unity in diversity. That we're all actually after the same goal, to love God and to love each other. And the teachings of all the prophets and all the teachers of each religion, they all preach this. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, are we different from each other? How different are we? We've all been created by God and we all have His blessings. So that is a common factor that we all share. God has sent prophets throughout time, and if we look at when prophets have been sent, whether it's Lord Ram, Lord Krishna, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Buddha, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, when did they come? They came to this world when evil was at its peak. People's human rights were being violated. They were being overburdened with taxes by the rulers. Cruelty was at its peak. If we look throughout time, that is when God has sent prophets to help and guide the people. And that is His blessing to us. So yes, we are different. Our faiths are different. They've evolved at different periods of time. But they all prophets have been sent by God, and therefore it's our duty to recognize that as the need arises, God has sent prophets to help and guide the people. They have not come for their own benefit, they've actually come to help the people that have been deprived, whose human rights have been violated, and to allow peace to continue. So yes, we are different, times are different, but I believe that all the faiths' messages are very similar. The faiths are very simple. They are to love each other, to love God, to be as good a person as you can be. But how we attain that, we have our own choices. We have choices of whether we do good or bad. Those are not done by God, those are our individual choices. So it's our duty to make the right choice, to use use the guidance given in our Holy Scriptures to show us the path to follow. So yes, we are different, but one thing we all still share in common is that we have God's blessings with us, and we should never forget that.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. And even though challenging winds may blow, we can all, if we stay focused on the right goal, we can all still attain that. So thank you for not being too distracted by our weather. I'd like to open up to the floor now. Thank you guys for coming and spending your time and lending us your ears. So are there any questions to the panel? Fantastic. So please.
The panel have spoken of the panel has spoken of peace and true ancient truth and justice and love. Every good thing in the world can be perverted, and one of the great perversions of love is possessiveness. But possessiveness can also be applied to confused with truth, and people can be very possessive about their own personal truth. Would the panel like to comment further? Some suggestions some hints have been made, but it could be opened out a bit further, I think.
So, just to clarify, make sure we got the question right, would the panel comment on the idea of truth and how that can be perverted at times, and what the solutions to that might be?
Bill, you always come up with these very philosophical and deep questions. So your question, if I understand it, is the understanding of truth from an individual point of view. Is that right?
And how it can become possessive.
About their truth. Okay. So I'll try and answer it as best as I can. It's kind of a strange one, but the recognition of truth is related to your inner truth, how truthful you are as a person. And it's quite interesting that the Holy Quran, it defines 4 stages of spirituality, or gifts of God, or 4 statuses, I should say, 4 statuses. The first is the righteous person. The righteous person meaning that he does no wrong, he does everything right. So it's kind of the first step. The second, it describes as the martyr. You might get shocked and think, martyr. And by martyr is meant that someone who obviously dies in the cause of his faith, but not as you see happening today, but more than that, who sacrifices all his desires for God. Then that third stage, which is kind of the ultimate stage beyond which is prophethood, is the truthful one. So Islam emphasizes truth so much so that it's basically the last stage before prophethood. And it's not just about telling the truth. Many people, they could stop telling lies, but it's more to do with your inner self. So if your inner self is true, then you could recognize the truth that God has sent down, and that has various aspects in every single individual and in every single way how you practice your faith. So hopefully it's answered your question somewhat.
I think it was the Labour politician Nye Bevan, who said once, and I think the Manic Street Preachers quoted this as well, "This is my truth, now tell me yours." And I think that's one of the difficult aspects of truth, that it's not quite as clear-cut perhaps as peace and love. We all have an idea of what we think the truth is, and but maybe, and what we tend to perhaps do is think that our version of the truth is the absolute truth, and then try and impose that truth on others. And I think that's where we can fall down. I think it's recognising that it's the truth from me, from where I see it, but it may not be the whole picture of the truth. And again, it's kind of being open to learning from others as to what their version of the truth might be, so that maybe we can all move forward to find a slightly even better version of that truth, rather than fighting over what we think the truth is. And I think this is where our faiths, our communities, and our nations get into trouble, that we stick very rigidly to our version of the truth, when actually we probably haven't really got the full picture of the truth, and we fight about it, we argue about it, rather than perhaps listening to each other's versions of the truth and seeing what is common, what the differences are, understanding why there are those differences, and then perhaps between us trying to move forward and get an even clearer picture of the truth. I think somebody once said that often we grasp hold of the truth in our hand, and then we kind of crush that truth. But if we held it in an open palm, then we are better able to see that truth, preserve that truth, and share it. And so I think that's not holding too tightly onto your truths, not dismissing them and saying they're not important. They are very important, but which is why you don't want to hold on to them too tightly. And being recognizing that none of us are perfect, and we don't have a perfect understanding, and so we can we learn as we move on in our lives, and we can certainly learn from that more open dialogue with others to see things from their point of view, not necessarily accepting every part of it, but thinking, actually, yeah, maybe I haven't got the full picture, maybe I can learn a little bit more, and then we're all moving forward on that same journey rather than battling with each other, perhaps really at the starting line.
In the 20th century, regimes, whether fascist, Nazi or communist, not only subverted faith, but claimed to have a monopoly of the truth as to how life was lived and society to be run. Now that time has passed, sadly I have to say, there are in many faiths groups who claim to have the religious truth and wish to enforce it politically on others of a different faith. So I think it behooves those of us, and I think I can speak for all in this assembly, who believe that that is not the way forward, to work against this perversion of the truth by claiming a monopoly and imposing one's own view on others. Thank you.
Like our friend said, we are imperfect beings. We are conditioned souls. So we can understand that there is a relative truth that might be relative to ourselves according to time, place and circumstance. But there is an absolute truth that runs common through all paths and religions. So in order to learn that absolute truth and to understand it, it is important that we have guides, that we have teachers. Many paths, they have something called a guru. Guru means darkness and ru means light. So a guru is one person who's qualified to take us from the darkness to the light. So if, for instance, we are of the Christian faith, if we really understand and follow Jesus' teachings, then he is guru. He will lead us to the light. And the same for any path or religion. Each religion and path has teachers, whether they be in the past or whether they are present. And if they are really living that truth, and we are really following it, then we will come to understand what is the absolute truth. And then, like Jitendra Prabhu was saying, then we can develop first the peace within ourselves, and then we can help others to also obtain that peace.
Thank you. Truth, it's a very complicated and very deep meaning word, but we are human beings. Every day we are learning. What we know today, tomorrow might change, and in future years will change with extra knowledge that we've attained. So we are always learning. So truth, what does it really mean? I think that it means that we must be knowing ourselves that what we are doing is correct. And again, being willing to accept change, evolving as we gain more knowledge. All faiths should be evolving, as society has evolved as well. And it's important that if you know what you are doing is correct, then you are at peace, and that is true to you. Why do conflicts, why does everything happen? It's because people, as we've heard before, people are trying to impose what they think is right on others. That's not true. If they truly believed in God, then they wouldn't be harming other people. So how can harming other people, harming the planet that's been given to us, be considered to be true? So truth, yes, it's there, but again, our faiths are a way of life and actually guiding us, and our faiths evolve, and we should evolve with our faiths too.
Fantastic. So we're nearing the end of our time slot. So what I'd like to do is, we've received a question from the wide world of the internet, and I'd just like to invite our panel to respond with a sentence, a kind of closing sentence in answer to this question. And the question is this: would the panel agree that love, peace and harmony are the pure way to reach God? So if you would like to close our session with a sentence each in response to that question.
Thank you. I'm being slightly put on the spot. Love, peace and harmony are the way to reach God. I think love, peace and harmony is the way to bring peace to humanity. Whether it's the way to reach God, perhaps, is a slightly more tricky matter. And I'll leave it at that.
I can do nothing better than recommend the golden rule, which is shared by almost all faiths that I know about and goes back so far as we know to Confucius, which is love thy neighbor as thyself.
One of my spiritual teachers used to say, God is love and love is God. So if we love God, we have God. God is everything. So if we love God, we have everything in our life. We'll be satisfied. If we are satisfied, then we'll have peace. And we'll be happy. And we'll be able to share that with others.
Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, Naam, Daan, Ishnan are important. Naam means we should remember God. Daan means we should help other people. Ishnan means we should look after our body, keep ourselves clean, and that is the way to attain God.
So our love, peace and harmony, the way to, yes, I think the simple answer is yes. Add on to that truth, as Bill has said, and I think the answer is yes. And you can see from the t-shirt, the motto of our community is love for all, hatred for none.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your thoughts. Many blessings. Thank you to our audience. Thank you to the internet and to everyone at home. And this has been the inaugural Leamington World Peace Forum, and we look forward to welcoming you all next year. Thank you so much.
To keep up to date with the latest videos from the Ahmadiyya Muslim Youth Association, subscribe to the MK UK Videos YouTube channel. Or, for more information about the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, log on to www.alislam.org.